Hello, everybody. I just heard you all in listening only mode. We are ready to go. Everything is set up very nicely here by Kevin and Roland, which I have with me in Germany, in Nettetal, in our German office. And I have, as usual, my friend Frederick as well in the call, in the webinar over here. Welcome, Frederick. Hello to Hong Kong. Hello to everybody online here. Thanks for joining in again. So we had quite a series of webinars, and today we have the nice opportunity to put on the crown to these webinars with the presentation, with the webinar on the Cinema 40. So the last one actually in the row of all the cinema products and AV products we launched from Marantz last year and beginning of this year. And the most music is sound is what we want to have and what to bring to the customer. And of course, how do we realize it? It's by our overall experience we have with creating nice sounding products, having AV receivers with latest technologies. And of course, this is reflected in the lineup. Talking about the lineup, I just want to briefly highlight again what we have done over the past 12 months. We started with the Model 40, followed by the CD60s in the first half of last year, and then the whole bunch of AV products from Cinema 70S up to the Cinema 40 today, and in between, let's say, the flagships, the AV10, M10. So you see a very strong portfolio of nice products. What is the, or let's say, what are the motivation, what are the highlights on these products? Of course, first of all, which is really obvious, is the new design, the luxury build quality of the product itself with the new elements, which we introduced a few years ago with the hi-fi products that's now also in the cinema series. We have the new user experience by the new HD GUI. We have advanced performance, which of course comes from the electronic we use, but also from the processing power we have. And that also comes along the processing power with the new feature set. So it's the beginning of the new luxury home cinema era. Here are all the 4 cinema series products on one page. As you can see, 70S on the left lower corner, then the 60 slightly above, the 50 with the trapdoor, and then on the top right, the Cinema 40 we are going to talk about today, having also the trapdoor and having the double display and the light side illumination. For Europe, we also have all these products, of course, available in silver gold, for some regions in APAC as well, while for the US market, it sticks to black. So let's have a closer look to the Cinema 40. I'm going to recap a bit the feature set we already had covered in the former webinars. I'm not going too much into all the details again. What I will do today is I will have a presentation of roughly about 20 minutes on the Cinema 40 with slides, with PowerPoints. But after that, I'm going over to do a live presentation of our web GUI, or let's say, no, not the web GUI, the HD GUI, the high definition graphic user interface. And here in specific, I'm going to focus on this new setup possibilities we have for the manual speaker setup. Because, you know, mid of March, we're going to release a new firmware update, which also brings new functionality to the product. And I already will give you a brief look into this one by a live demonstration. But now let's dig a bit into the product here. In general, I already spoke about sound quality is, of course, where we are very keen on, and we are specialists. And where it's coming from is, of course, the experience we have. And it's also about the high quality circuit design, which the experience brings us. So we do know what to do in a certain way to get a good sound quality. Then, of course, we have great sounding components. You know, the right mix of components will give you the best audio performance. It's not just having all the best components, because they might be more, let's say, most expensive and might be on its own very good. But if they all play together or want to play very good, you might have some conflict. So you have to find the right balance in components. And that's, again, our experience we have. And then number 3 for a good audio quality is, of course, minimize distortion, because every distortion coming from the outside, we want to minimize, we want to avoid not to get the audio signal affected by that. Looking to some criteria, sound factors I put on the left-hand side, which we always aim for is, of course, soundstage. It means we want to have a wide soundstage. So the soundstage should be very wide, it should be deep, and it should be also height. So we really want to have a 3-dimensional soundstage in stereo, but if you have it in stereo, it will also have a very positive effect on the surround experience, because all the tuning we do in stereo, we also apply for all the rest of the channels. Then we come to SN, which means signal to noise ratio, openness and clearness. That's in principle all about how clean is the reproduction, how much details can you get, how focused is the whole presentation, how much information can you get out of the music reproduced or the movie reproduced. And that's actually also going into the next step, the separation, resolution, focus on sound image. So that's all about details, precision, clearness, so that no detail get actually masked or, let's say, being blurred, but it should be really focused. Musicality, air and atmosphere, yeah, that's actually where then emotion comes into the game, that you really get all the feeling for the music, the feeling for the movie, that it really touches you and takes you into it. And then, of course, bass, power dynamics. You really want to have an attack when the bass kicks in from a drum set, or you have an explosion. That all should be nicely reproduced. And the standard actually, or what we follow, is that from the entrance to the top class product, of course, all should fulfill it, these criteria, but you go good, better, best. Yeah, just to give you the idea how we always follow our direction when it comes to the sound tuning of the product and to position the new product over the old ones, because we want to be better than the former, the predecessor model. What we do is, for example, now I'm going into the details of the Cinema 40. What we're going to do here in specific is we have a strong power supply, and one key element of the power supply is, of course, a power transformer, which should be solid, which should be able to deliver fast current to load the main capacitors, which you can see on the top right, which are also made for audio, same like the power transformer. We need to have the quality, the clean power supply for all the different sections of the product to really get the quality across and not get any distortion. Yeah, minimize distortion is always what we are trying. And as you can see on the power transformer, there's also a copper band around it to help even improve. That's something you don't need for the product to function, but it helps to improve the audio quality. Then, of course, we talk about digital processing. On the top, in the middle picture with the right arrow, you can see that's the Sharp DSP, the Griffin Light one, the XP, which is very powerful, which gives us access to all the different sound formats we talked about. We have Audyssey, Dirac, upgradability, and we have the 4 subwoofers. That, of course, counts as well for the Cinema 40. And talking about the 4 subwoofers, I have a graphic here for you to highlight again that we actually have 2 subwoofer modes integrated. So we have on the left-hand side, you can see the standard mode, where the subwoofers, the 4 subwoofers actually do get the same audio signal. Only the level and the distance will be adjusted, but the signal itself provided to the subwoofer is the same. While on the directional mode, as you can see it on the right side hand, the signal provided to the subwoofers actually do match to the position where they are. So be it front left, front right, rear left, rear right. So this subwoofers get directional signals. So it will be a much nicer integration. So I also have another graphic for you to show it a bit better. Left-hand side, you see it's all blue, because they all get the same signal. On right-hand side, you have the left, the right, the rear, left and right as well. So you get 4 zones. But you can also work with just 2 zones, what I illustrated here on the left-hand side, that you have a left subwoofer array and a right subwoofer array, or if you're just working with 2 subwoofers, for example. The 4 subwoofer outputs also give us the possibility to, let's say, enable one dedicated to a tactile transducer, means actually a butt kicker, so to check your sofa. That's also nicely done by the 4 subwoofers. Talking about calibration systems, of course, Dirac Live, I already mentioned that we will have the firmware update in the mid-March. And this will finally add the Dirac Live upgradability to our products, to the AV10, Cinema 40 and Cinema 50. And you are aware of Dirac and the room calibration capabilities they provide. And it will be, well, it is controlled via the PC. And on the PC, you're running a software on the PC, or to the PC, your microphone is connected to be independent from the location of AV receivers. The license you can buy for Dirac is in 2 steps actually. You have a license which is limited, which does the calibration for 20 Hertz to 500 Hertz, or you have a full range license which goes from 20 Hertz up to 20 kilohertz. You have pricing mentioned here, 259 or 349. That's defined by Dirac, and the license needs to be purchased via the Dirac website. And I'm very happy to show you this one here now, because we just got the certification on the 9th of February for our 3 products I mentioned before, that we are Dirac Live ready, certified. So full suite of Dirac Live room correction is now integrated. What we shouldn't forget about, so maybe just one more to mention, we plan to do a dedicated Dirac Live training later on. So time is not fixed yet, but it will come. Stay tuned. We will send you an invitation for that one. What we shouldn't forget about is that we, of course, still going to feature our Audyssey calibration, because this is also a very powerful tool, a very well known and proved high quality room calibration, and it's already integrated in the AV receivers. There are no additional costs. The microphone is coming with the unit, so it's really easy to set up or easy to use for any customer, because once the unit gets connected, the AV receiver gets connected to a TV screen, actually the customer will be guided through all the steps for the auto calibration with Audyssey. Very nice, very a good tool, of course, and that we will maintain. As you can see on the right-hand side, I also put a picture in here for our Audyssey app, which is available via the app stores, be it Google Play or iTunes. You can purchase another app for doing more fine-tuning on the calibration, actually to go a bit more under the hood. Okay, let's jump into the next step. So we came from the DSP, we have the digital signal which has been processed via Dirac or via Audyssey, and now we have the digital signal which needs to get converted to the analog stage, of course, for further amplification. And as you can see here now, that's the DA converter board. We do use 8 times the stereo DUC, so in total then 16 channels we can process, 11.4 are only 15, so we will leave 1 open. But you can see with the stereo DUC, we can get a very nice separation for all the different channels, which gives us clear audio quality. On the top right, you can see another blue arrow, which is pointing towards the volume IC, which is an electrical one, and is adjusting all the volume levels and also the speaker levels for all the channels. Then we do have after the volume control, we have to pass on the audio signal to the next stage, or let's say to the final stage, which is output stage. We have to pass on the signal. And for that, we always use our HDAM modules, you know, our hyperdynamic amplifier modules, which do give a nice push to the audio signal, nice speed, and we ensure that there's no interference coming to it. So that's now the HDAM board of the Cinema 40. And as you can see, we have 15 of these channels, or let's say HDAM boards means for each channel a dedicated HDAM module. And it is mounted on top of the audio board, as you can see on the right-hand side on the top image, the location. Though it's twisted around, so bottom up actually. And to have another shielding, we added these special silicon steel material, which is kind of plastic, but has shielding characteristics. So this is nicely done here again to minimize distortion, to minimize influence from the outside towards the audio signal. Clean design for clean audio reproduction. And just to give you a bit of a comparison, how the HDAM implementation looks like in the other products. We have on the left here now the Cinema 40, which we just have seen. In the center, it's the Cinema 50, where all the HDAM boards are placed on the audio board, on the input board. And on the right-hand side, you can see the Cinema 60 solution, where the HDAM board is attached to the side as a kind of connection board. But you can already see here now, it's 3 different type of solutions. So it's not that we just do a copy and paste and just change the type number. We really have a dedicated product, a dedicated solution per product. And to show you how important the HDAM solution actually is, I have here the signal flow. So that's the input area. Yeah, so digital analog inputs, the A converter. So for your digital signal, it comes to a selector, electrical volume control, which I just showed you. And then before passing on the signal to the amplifier over here, we have the HDAM. So it's really right in the way, right in the center of the audio signal path. So it's very important, very critical. And you can see as well, so it affects both the pre-out as well as the signal which goes via the speaker output, of course. Let me just point out here the preamp mode. We talked about that's the solution we have to detach the amplifier from the pre-outs. Yeah, so this will improve the quality. So if customer decides to just use the pre-outs, he can select the preamp mode. So the output signal, the pre-outs and the speaker out gets detached, so that you will get a cleaner pre-out signal. So just to point that one out here, and I will come back to this function in the let's say the live session when I'm going to run through the manual speaker setup. Then finally, after the HDAM modules, we pass on the audio signal, of course, to the output stage, the power amplifiers, and I'm just flipping here. So that's now a top view. Inside on the left-hand side, you can see again the power transformer. Then you see the heatsink, and attached to that are the amplifier modules, which we have for 9 channels. And I'm going to show you another picture which makes it more obvious. So that's actually here the heatsink, and you can see 9 of the amplifier boards. So each channel does get a dedicated audio board, amplifier board. So this again helps to improve signal separation, but as well also gives us more capability, more possibility to tweak or to handle the product, the audio signal in the right way. And also here again, a comparison between the 3 products mentioned before. Left-hand side, we have the Cinema 40 with the 9 boards. In the center, you have the Cinema 50 with the 2 heat sinks and the 2 boards, where on one board we have 5 channels, on the other board we have 4 channels, so in total as well 9, like on the Cinema 40, but a different way of construction. And then we have the Cinema 60, where we have a different type of heatsink, which is a folded metal, plus 1 board holding the 7 channels of amplification. So I think that's quite nice to see different construction here as well. Then just a quick look to the rear panel of the product. It's a full suite of connectors and formats. On the top, you can see all type of logos here. So from DTS, Dolby Atmos, IMAX Enhanced, over 3D. And then we, of course, it's not mentioned over here, but we also have MPEG-H, and by that, the 360 reality audio capability. We have Dirac, we have Audyssey. So it's all covered. We have 7 HDMI inputs, of course, all 8K capable, 2 8K outputs, and the Zone 2 HDMI output, which is 4K capable. Phono input and all the analog inputs as well over here, Phono MM. 11 pair of speaker terminals. That's, of course, we only have 9 channel of amplification built in, but we have the possibility to do the configuration in the way that you can install 11 speaker and the unit automatically switch it by the speakers or by the format coming into the speakers to be used. So that's pretty nice. And on here in this area, we have the pre-out section, which is actually 11 channels for all the floor and ceiling speakers, plus the additional 4 subwoofer outputs, which are located over here. And then we, of course, have Zone 2 and Zone 3. So it's all nicely covered, well organized, and easy to find. What we shouldn't forget is, of course, our network capability over here. Yeah, and with the network, we are back to our HEOS platform. HEOS, as you know, is our gate to the network, to all the online music services. I'm highlighting it here because we have our own solution. With HEOS, we have access to all the music services mentioned over here. We have the streaming capability of Hi-Res. We have tested certification. We have Bluetooth and AirPlay. That's all covered by the HEOS module. And of course, it also works with Siri and works with Alexa. And we don't have to need, we are not in the need to use any third-party solution to be maybe even externally connected to our AV receivers, but we just can go with what is built into our receiver, so the customer is ready to go. To let the customer also use the apps very easily, in the setup menu, in the setup wizard, we also have the assistant. We also have the possibility to show all the 3 apps we have available, and the way already here presented with a QR code for easy download. Remote control, it's the same like you have seen on the other cinema products as well. The nice thing, as I mentioned before, is that we do have a backlit function. So there's a button on the side which is doing the backlit operation, which makes the use in a dark environment much nicer, easier. And we have the smart select buttons where we can store certain scenes on to make it really easy to use for different applications, be it watching TV, watching Blu-ray, watching at night, watching at daytime, listening to music, whatever you like, you can store on the Smart Select. And this Smart Select, we also did quite some modifications on. I'm not sure if I can show it to you today in the setup menu itself, but stay tuned, that will come in mid-March. That you did really specify what kind of parameters can be stored on the Smart Select. So to sum it up, we have here just an overview about all the features. I'm not going to read out all of these, but I just want to highlight that this Cinema 40s is very powerful. It has 9 times 125 watt on 8 ohms RMS, so means 0.05% two-channel driven measured. So it's very powerful. We have the 70% guarantee. So if you run 5 channels at the same time, at least you will have 70% of the 125 watt available. So this Cinema 40 is made to drive even bigger sound installations with ease, and you don't have to fear that you run out of power. We do have all the latest formats integrated. Yeah, I mentioned with the Griffin Light XP processor, we have a very powerful engine working to get everything covered. and it will really give you the thrilling cinema experience with the most musical sound. So that's really a very nice product we have on sale here. And let me point out again, this product is made in Japan. That's also why you have seen that we have been more flexible in finding different solutions for the interior design, for the interior parts, electronic circuitry. Made in Japan means made in our own factory, means we have more flexibility in getting the best solution to going even more extreme. Summary on the Cinema series overall. Yeah, as said, get the most musical sound from the Cinema series. We have the characteristic of Marantz, which is that's warm, emotional, and rich sound, which counts, of course, for all of the Cinema products across the line. Yeah, so you always will get the Marantz experience. What you will get more, I showed it at the beginning, it's good, better, best. The higher you go in the lineup, the better you get the sound stage, the more details you get, the more atmospheric it will get. So, but the tonal balance, the tonal characteristic is always Marantz. Then we have the extended feature, HDMI connectivity. So on Cinema 70S and the Cinema 60, we have 3x 8K input. For all the other products, we have 8K on all the inputs available. Then we have the high definition graphical user interface, which I'm going to show you in a second, and the new setup possibilities for the nicer user experience. We have the backlit remote, which also comes with the user experience, having it in the hand. It feels nice and it's easy to operate even in dark environments. We have the preamplifier mode, again, having a higher flexibility in the setup. We have the improved H-dance. I showed you how important it is, where it sits into the signal chain. It's really just before the power amplifier stage, so it really gives the audio signal the needed drive to really drive the power amplifier stage with confidence, with a cleaner signal. And then the new Griffin Light XP, I already just mentioned on the slide before what it brings us. So really powerful, the Cinema series. Overall, why Marantz? High quality amplification, extended connectivity, powerful main transformers, going left, lower right corner now, strong power supply because it fits nicely to the power transformer. In the center, DSP. On the left-hand side, the network connectivity by our HEOS module. So there's so much ingredients, so much technology in there that, it is just a very powerful, capable solution, which you can find from all of our Cinema products. Okay, that's so far the presentation. I wanted to show you final image here with the nice close-up of the Marantz Cinema 40 and the display. You can see it over here. I'm now going to move over to show you the new setup menu for the speakers. And I go one more because I have a black screen over here. Just give me a second. I have to move position.
So Oliver, while you do that, there's a couple of questions that came in. I'm not sure if you want to address them in the meantime.
Oh, we can do, sure, why not?
Yeah, that's great. Let's talk a little bit about these subwoofers. You said, you mentioned 2 subwoofers or 4 subwoofers in the setup. What if somebody wants to use 3 subwoofers? How would you set it up? How would you advise that we go about this?
Right, yeah. So I think it's the best way to use 3 subwoofers is that you do a left-right on the front and the center in the back. Yeah, so by that you can nicely distribute the bass over all your seating area. You can widen the seating area. You won't have any gaps in the bass performance because that's normally the critical thing. The wavelength of the bass signal, so be it 80 Hertz, you always have a kind of drop or dead zone somewhere in your room, and that you can avoid by having, for example, 3 subwoofers. And this 3 subwoofer setup is also required if you want to use a butt kicker, because then the force output of your subwoofers is used to drive the butt kicker. Yeah, so 3 subwoofer setup is not really unusual in this respect.
Great. And then one more, if you don't mind.
Sure.
If you can choose between standard mode or directional mode. Directional mode obviously is superior. So is there any reason why we're still including the standard mode?
Because customer might just want to use the standard mode. Yeah. So I would say as soon as you're using more than 2 subwoofers, it makes sense to, or let's say more than 1 subwoofer. If you use 2 subwoofers, it really makes sense to use this, the directional mode. But having both options will give the flexibility to the customer to use it, to play around with, to define what fits better his needs and his room.
So legacy mode or backwards compatible. Okay, I'm gonna let you go through the HD GUI right now.
Right, so you can already see it on screen, I think. Kevin, is it all fine, all good? Perfect, thanks. So you can see here now our new HD GUI. I already showed it on some slides in the former trainings. But the nice thing now is that I already have here beta firmware of our next to be released firmware, which is coming in mid-March, I told you. And this already gives me the possibility now to show you some additional features we are going to bring and how the new, let's say, base management is implemented. And also, let me start just with one information over here. What we also have changed on the HDMI, because it might be quite handy for some of your installation. So HDMI control, if I set it to off, so in the past or in the current firmware, it's not possible to change ARC. That will be grayed out for now because HDMI control needs to be on to activate or deactivate ARC. That's what we're going to change here now. So now even if HDMI control is off, you still already can use ARC. So that's quite a handy feature for some of the installation. Because the most interesting one, of course, it's going to happen over here in the speaker setup. And you will see some new stuff over here. So menu setup, so far we had Audyssey, menu setup, and now we are going to add the Dirac Live. Actually, this will give the customer some information how to continue, what Dirac Live can actually do, what is required for it, and where to get more information. Yeah? So you have a QR code, you can scan it, get directly directed to the information here on the manuals with Dirac Live additional information. If you continue, you will be informed how to do the next steps. So that's just to guide the customer in the direction for Dirac Live. So that's working nicely. More isn't here on Dirac Live because, as I explained, all the rest of the, let's say, execution of the Dirac Live room correction is done on the computer, it's done on the PC, not within the menu of the receiver. And that's also the big difference to Audyssey. Audyssey is all integrated into the receiver. It can be used by everybody without additional need for equipment. There's no need to connect a computer. There's no need to buy a license, or there's no need to buy an extra microphone because it's all in the box. Very important, very easy to handle. So the Dirac Live, I would say, is really for the specialists, for the CI dealers, for the guys who really want to go in the extremes and really play around, fiddle around with the setup. But what I want to show you actually is the manual setup. If I enter here, you see a reduced list of functions. On the current firmware, we do have about 12 items, while here it's now really reduced to just 6 to make it easier to understand. And we also improved the flow for the setup. If I go to speaker layout now, currently it was only possible to define what kind of system do I have. Yeah, so if I run here, I'm just running through it to show you all the options. That was actually what we had so far. Yeah, so we had the ampersand possibility. It showed you all the different configurations. Yeah, and here's the preamplifier mode, for example, where all all channels are just outputted by the preamplifier, and so on and so on. 11 channel 0.1 configuration, and it also shows you here, okay, I have speakers connected. As I only have 9 channels implemented, so amplified, I have to do additional pre-settings. And I keep this one for a second here, and we'll just show you some of the features or functionality we also added. So we now have here the layout, the possible speaker setups, and I can define, I do have his front speakers, yes, and so on. I can actually select what kind of speaker configuration I do have in my room. And I can also say, okay, I do use for my front speakers the integrated amplification. So I do use the speaker terminals. And the pre-out, of course, is running in parallel as well, as usual. However, I can also go in here and say, okay, pre-out only. I showed you in the presentation before that little switch disconnecting the pre-out from the power stage. And that's what actually is going to happen here. Now my front speakers are disconnected from the internal power amplifier. And by that I can really do all my configuration of my speaker layout and the way I'm going to drive it on one screen. And I have here now, for example, rear layout, it's pre-out only. I can change that one to speaker, then automatically my front will be disconnected. Yeah, and we asked to use the pre-out for the front channel, but also here I can play around again with several configuration. And while we talked about here, we now have 3 subwoofers only connected. Yeah, and you see even here on the graphic, Frederick, and everybody online, that the center, the third subwoofer is positioned in the graphic in the center of the rear. So let me switch back here to another configuration. So I'm now going to do the, was one too quick, the 7.1 plus front B, because that one will activate one feature I'm going to show you on another slide. So here's my configuration, my setup for the speakers, and I can define, okay, what kind of amplification I'm going to use, internally or the external. Let me go one back now. So distance, nothing really changed. So it's kept the same way as you know it. So we don't have to spend time here. Level is actually the same. It's also going to start the test tone. Crossovers. Yeah. So here you define all the crossovers for your speakers. And what I would like to point out here is that we changed the naming. You know, before you had one page where you had to say, okay, yes, I have a center channel. It's small or it's large. Yeah. Now the crossover is covering this area. So we already defined before in the first screen what kind of speaker setup we have. Now we have here in crossover the possibility to say, okay, it's a full range speaker. Or I'm now going to show it here on the surround one. It's full range, or I can also define it can only do 40 Hertz, 60, 80 Hertz. So I can set my crossover frequency over here. It's either full range or with a crossover now set here for 80 Hertz. But you can notice as well as that the speaker size is going to change as soon as I'm on full range. So this is actually replacing the small and large setting from the past. Okay, let's go back. Speaker preset, you know, we have speaker preset 1 and 2. Right now you see on top right, it's speaker preset 1. I can go in here and change then to 2. I'm not going to do that now because I would like to keep the speaker preset 1 settings because I just set the layout like I wanted to have it. I defined the crossovers, and that will all change if I go to preset 2 because then it will just take the information which is stored on it. So let's go into the advanced mode because that's very new here on this setup. Under advanced, we gathered all the, let's say, information which are more for the specialist. I will skip low frequency for now. I will just go for the front speakers. You remember I said 7.1 plus B, so I can now here select my front speakers, A, B, or A plus B for the configuration. Two-channel playback, also very important. I can define what should happen if I only get a stereo signal, a PCM stereo signal, for example, as an input signal. If I leave it to auto, it will just follow what I have set for multi-channel setting. If I go to manual, I can define what is going to happen with stereo content. I can say, okay, I don't want to have any bass attraction. I can power it off or set it. No, I can define. I have to do it here. Subwoofer output. I can switch to just LFE, yeah, or LFE plus main. So I can really tweak. I can also say no subwoofer at all for my stereo listening. Yeah, I do have full range front speakers, and if I listen to music, I only want to have these speakers running and no subwoofer. Subwoofer I only want to have for movie. This I can define here for stereo playback. So that's very nice, the feature to combine actually high quality AV listening with high quality stereo listening, hi-fi listening. Tactile transducer, I mentioned that one. That's a butt kicker, which will be connected to subwoofer output number 4. And what you can see here, I can say, okay, enable or disable. If I enable the subwoofer 4 for the tactile transducer, I can adjust the level plus minus 12 dB. So really can put it to the right or match it correctly with your sofa and the butt kicker used. And I can also define the crossover frequency. Yeah, I only want to have it really, really low grumbling, or I can give it even up to 250 hertz signal, which actually means that I will get a lot of information to the butt kicker. But now let's go into low frequency effects, LFE. And here we really made a big change for the settings. So first one is subwoofer output. If I go to subwoofer output, I will now have a graphic supporting my understanding. So subwoofer output, if I just go to LFE signal, this means LFE signal, low frequency effects, a special track recorded on a movie. Only this LFE will be pushed to the subwoofer plus non-full range channels, which actually means all the speakers which I set a crossover frequency for, let's say 80 hertz, all the signals below 80 hertz will be redirected to the subwoofer. Speakers set to full range will just pass on to the speakers. No signal will be taken from that channel and pass to the subwoofer. However, if I want to have my subwoofer running all the time, I can also take signals coming from the full range speakers and make a bass attraction LPF. And then the signal will be passed on to the subwoofer in addition to the main speakers. And I can define for front, center, front height. These are the speakers I defined as a full range speaker. I can define here again which part of the signal should be passed on to the subwoofer. So this is really a very nice option to get the best subwoofer integration. Low pass filter for the LFE, yeah, that's actually positioned over here. So the LFE signal is on my disc in my movie. It will be passed on to the subwoofer. However, I can also tell them I don't want to have all the LFE signal, but only the ones which are really low in the frequency. I can set it to 80 hertz and only the 80 hertz, or I can go up to 250 hertz in a max. Yeah. So that way you use the low pass filter. And then there's another nice one, which is the distribution option. Because we are now going it a different way. LFE signal, I can now pass on to my full range speakers. Yeah, so by that, again, some part of the LFE, the effect channel actually, will be passed on to your front speakers or center speakers, let's say the floor speakers, which are large or set to large or full range, I have to say, which are set to full range. I can say, okay, I want to activate it. Now I take the LFE signal, lower it by 20 dB, and pass it on to the full range speakers. Yeah, I can do that. I think, yeah, from -20 up to 0 dB. So by that one, you have a nice integration again of the low frequency effects with the subwoofer and your full range speakers. So that's it about our new speaker advanced setup menu. And yeah, the cleanup of the new manual setup or for the speakers, including the speaker layout. So then let's go one more. Let's see if I can find it in here. So I talked about the Smart Select, right? Here it is, also something new. Yeah, I can define now for the Smart Select what kind of function should be stored under the Smart Select. You see all the options we have: input source, master volume, sound mode, channel, and so on, HDMI video source. So that's all stored now under Smart Select. However, I can also say, okay, the speaker preset shouldn't be affected by the Smart Select. So again here, a much more flexibility. And this is of course done per input. So on top right, you can see it's CBL SAT. This is now defined for the input. Right, okay, then let's disable that one. So I think that's a great upgrade on our HD GUI, on the capability adjustment possibility for the customer to really get it yeah, to set up to the needs, to fit it around with the tuning, to really get the maximum out of the installation in the room on the specific loudspeaker. So this gives a lot of flexibility. Let me now quickly change the input over here, because I also connected a PC to it. Because you might remember in one of the former webinars, I showed you the web GUI. And that's now the web GUI, like you have seen it before. And we do have these advanced mode here. If I click on settings, that's what I already showed you. Yeah, for the CI mode, you can now activate or deactivate, and then you can select different features to be deactivated. Yeah? So having AirPlay and Spotify Connect, for example, set to off. Yeah, it will help that your kids are not going to disturb you when watching a movie in your home cinema by just pressing a Spotify Connect on their phone. That's not possible anymore, because the unit will not show up as a Spotify Connect capable product. But what I actually want to show you is not this one here, because that one you already have seen. What we added new now is that we also have the HDMI diagnostic. I explained about it as well briefly. And I showed you with the HDMI diagnostic, you actually can do all kind of testing of your setup if you have any issues in the audio or video distribution via the HDMI cables towards your projector, or no signal coming from your source. The HDMI diagnostic does help you to analyze your system and find the root cause for a problem. And what you can see now here is the steps we have built in here. We can do a video test, an audio test, yeah, cable test, and then we have, with the information we gathered by all these different tests, we can actually do limit the capabilities of the receiver to match your installation on the video side. So let me start here. If I do now a video test, it will not tell us any information because there's no source connected. Yeah, so they will not there's an error because it can't see a product connected. There's no source connected. Okay, this might be the reason that the cable I use between my source and the AV receiver is broken. So I'm going to replace that one. But actually what I would like to show you is a cable test. Yeah, the unit has a built-in cable tester. As you can see on the graphic here, I have to connect a cable from the HDMI input number 7 to the HDMI out monitor 1. And if I do that right now, thanks Roland for putting the cable in, I can start the test, and it's running through all the different resolutions which are supported by HDMI 2.1, and it gives me a result of the capabilities of the cable. So it takes a bit of a time. You see, wow, that's a great cable. You see all the different resolutions: 480, 720, 1080p, 4K, 18 gigabits per second, up to 8K, 40 gigabits per second, all pass. So means we have an excellent cable. We have no limitations. So then I will ask Roland to swap the cable, please. And I will do it again. So it's now just entering the mode. I'm going to do a cable test again. Cable is connected. I can do the start. Same procedure. These kind of tools you can also buy as a separate analyzer tool. It's very, very expensive. So it starts with 500 and more dollars or euros. So again, we have a very good cable because it passed all the function, all the features. And I don't know, do we have one cable which is not doing that well? Roland, anything you could put in? Yeah. Let's see, let's give it another try. If we can find one more. One final test. But as you would expect, yeah, from the German head office, they only have good quality cables. Again, all pass. So we have very fine cables. However, if you have long cables which aren't active, yeah, you might see that 8K is not supported anymore. So by then, you know, okay, I have to limit my video, and that's what I can do in limit mode. And here you have now the limit mode, where you actually can see all the different inputs, the 7 HDMI inputs, and I can define what kind of video resolution this input should allow. I set it now for CBS SAT to 1080p. This actually does work in the way that the AV receiver does tell the source player that it only can handle 1080p signals. So I limit the overall performance, and when the connected player gets this information, I can only do 1080p. It will automatically switch and only output 1080p. By that, you can actually establish again the video connection and get a picture. So I think that's it for now. Of course, we also have a customer support, a service support. If there's really a big issue in an installation, you can also do an analysis by the unit. You can write a log file of the edit data, and you can store it on a USB stick and send it over. So then I would say let's move back to normal camera. I will go over here again. We have done this one.
We have to admit, Oliver, it's an amazing update. All the advanced features, it's so much easier to use right now. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, it's very powerful. Yeah, so if you once started to play around with, you easily get the logic behind. Yeah? So it's not that you have to flip through all the different screens which you have to link together. No, it's much more intuitive. And yeah, I'm pretty sure you will like it once you played with it. Very good.
Okay, so yes, you're waiting for questions, and we have plenty of those.
Okay,
we'll
cool.
start with Dirac. Will Dirac also include the active room treatment?
Active room treatment has been introduced beginning of this year at the CES show. It's, as you know, they are actually, now that's they are, let's say, third technology. So you have Dirac Live, which we have implemented now, which is the room correction for your, let's say, normal speakers. Then there's Dirac bass control, which really focus on the subwoofers. This update we are planning to bring for beginning of next year. So this functionality to also have bass control into our receivers. And the active room treatment, it's something we are now investigating if this maybe can be added to the same update beginning of next year, or if it will come to a later stage. So right now it's not in.
Okay, and then the camera, so not the camera, the microphone that is recommended to most users is the UMIC 1 from Mini DSP. So since this is a digital microphone with a USB connection, do we still need a PC audio card? I don't think so, right? Because if it's already inside the microphone, it doesn't need an audio card.
Correct, yeah. So you just connect it to your PC, or what you also can do is connect it to the AV receiver. This option also does exist. So you can connect the USB microphone to the front USB input of the receiver, and also it takes the signal from there. Yeah, so you don't need a sound card in your computer.
Okay, that's clear. I'm not sure if we have an answer for this. The difference between Dirac and Audyssey in time phase correction in the speaker area. I'm not sure if we can. That's probably a question we can do during the Dirac session.
Yeah, so it is that Dirac supports phase correction or time domain correction, which is not supported by Audyssey. I think we have, as you said, we should dig into it a bit more during a dedicated Dirac session, because we also have to see that, for example, I talked about crossovers. These are, for example, not detected by Dirac, while it is detected by Audyssey. So we have to, let's say, be a bit careful about how we are going to compare it and who is actually the user of Audyssey or Dirac.
And about Audyssey, what's the actual frequency range that the software does the calibration?
Yeah, full bandwidth, so means 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz.
Up till 20,000, right? There's no cutoff, but there is a way where you can set in the curve on the app a specific cutoff if you don't want to touch the remainder part, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So let's say if you use it out of the AV receiver solely, it goes full bandwidth, so you don't have the possibility to influence it there. If you want to do a cutoff, so let's, for example, say you only want to correct the range from 20 hertz up to 500 hertz or 1 kilohertz, you can do that via the Audyssey Mighty EQ app, yeah, which is available on purchase.
Right. Let's have a quick look that we have answered. This one too. Good question. How does the Cinema 4T compare to its predecessor, the SR7015, in terms of sound? Not disregarding the feature set, because that's definitely different.
Right, yeah. No, I think there's a big difference because I explained that the Cinema 4T is now produced in Japan, and the whole construction, it's much more like the SR8015 done with the mono amplifier boards, while the SR7015 is done in a different way with the two heat sinks, which I showed you, which is similar to the Cinema 50 solution, yeah, where you had these two boards of 5 channel and 4 channels. So the Cinema 40, you actually should more compare to an SR8015 than to an SR7015.
So it's definitely a nice step up. On the other hand, if you're comparing this to the Denon AVC 4800, the X4800, similar platform, similar feature set, but of course a different type of sound.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's why we do have our sound masters and engineering team for Denon and for Marantz separated. So to really keep our own identity in sound. And as I mentioned in the presentation before, Marantz is all about the warmth, the emotion, and the sound stage, yeah, which also is reflected over the whole cinema lineup. Yeah, and if you compare now a Denon and the Marantz, let's say the 4800 and the Cinema 40, on paper they look very much the same. Well, feature set is very much the same. Power is the same. However, the internal constructions and the used parts allow us to really define the sound quality of a Denon and a Marantz.
And you did mention the 8015. Is that going to be replaced anytime?
Not right now, but for sure it will be replaced as well.
Okay, question about Roon without AirPlay for higher resolution. I think he's referring to Roon ready instead of Roon tested.
Correct, yeah. So it's still on our list. The products are more or less, yeah, ready for it, but we just have to push it through. It's not fixed yet when that is going to be happen.
So that's going to be in the HEOS app. And then talking about HEOS, a lot of people are asking about Tidal Masters and Atmos from streaming directly through the HEOS app. Is that on the roadmap?
Tidal Master is on the roadmap. Dolby Atmos direct streaming isn't, because that actually requires a bitstream output from the HEOS module or multi-channel PCM, whatever, and that's not supported. So there's no direct possibility to do Dolby Atmos music streaming. However, you can do it via Chromecast Ultra or Amazon.
Yep, or an Apple TV that has the Tidal app, or a TV that has the Tidal app.
Yeah. So it needs to be connected to the HDMI input of the receiver.
Exactly. Interesting question from Ronald. Is there any experience yet with 4-sub setup regarding the directionality, that's directional bass? We know subwoofers are supposed to be omnidirectional, but we're now working with 4 subwoofers in the corners. Is it a big difference? I mean, I can say yes, I definitely heard it. For me, it's very obvious that the bass is much more focused. What's your experience on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you said, you experienced it. We had some demonstration running in France on video shows, audio shows. We had it at, where was it? Was it at it's a CDS show? We demonstrated, and it was always really mind-blowing how these directional subwoofers do work, interact with the rest of the speakers. So it's much. You always say a subwoofer you can't localize, but that's not correct. Yeah, so actually also deep sounds you can localize or feel it coming from a certain direction. So the overall integration of the subwoofers with the rest of the speakers and the directional effect you get when, for example, a dinosaur is crossing the room, it's very amazing.
Interesting question, why the Cinema series naming is different and not as the old SR series. And that's my bell, I'm sorry about that. So we moved from the older SR to the Cinema series. So any particular reason for that?
That's we changed the whole name convention. Yeah, with the introduction of the Model 30 and SACD 30N, we started a new naming convention for all the Marantz products, and now with this new series of AV solutions in the new design, we also changed the naming convention to Cinema to really more underline what the unit is, let's say, meant for.
And it makes much more sense because it speaks for itself. So question, does HDMI cable test also work with AOC HDMI cables? I'm not too familiar with AOC HDMI cables. So
I have to pass, I don't know. Yeah, so if you, I don't know, maybe it's an active cable. Of course, it also works with active cables. Just pay attention to the direction you're connected.
That makes sense. Question from Jens. Does a Cinema 40 have a metal or a plastic remote?
It's a plastic cover on top. Yeah, so only the AV10 has the metal remote.
Does the HDMI support VSS and 120 Hertz? I think he probably meant VRR, the variable refresh mode, and 120 Hertz.
Yeah, it does.
We mentioned Yumic 1. Somebody's asking if an Anthem ARC microphone can be used or not. I'm not sure. I know you need a USB type mic, a digital mic.
So I don't know. I have to look it up within the Dirac application, because they're actually where you load your microphone or detect your microphone, and you can load a correction curve to it. Yeah, because every microphone comes with a correction curve, so that you really have, let's say, the perfect microphone conditions, the reference.
Yeah, I think on the website they probably have an FAQ where you can check which microphones are supported, and it's always possible to send them an email to verify whether this works. But it makes sense as long as it's a digital microphone that has a calibration curve embedded via its serial number, and you can download and put it in the software. It should, in theory, work, provided that the Dirac software can actually see the microphone. I think you were right about the AOC, active optical cable, so that's answered. I'm checking if there's anything else that we haven't. Nope, we're through. We have answered all the questions. It was very interactive, a very nice session.
Thank you very much, Frederick. Yeah, I also enjoyed it because it's really cool to show you all the new features, and I'm really proud that our engineering team again lift the bar, rise the bar to a higher level, and it's always, yeah, you know, this world of AV is so dynamic, and you always have to be a step ahead to the rest of the crowd to really stick out from them. And I'm very happy that our team is so capable of always finding the right feature set and combining it then with the performance, yeah, we can deliver. So thank you very much again. Stay tuned. The next session most likely is going to be about Dirac, but I will let you know, or you will see the invite coming in somewhere soon. Thank you, Frederick, for your time again and the great support. Thanks, Kevin Roland, and take care and have a nice day. Bye-bye.